Chukwuemeka's life was built on the unbreakable bond he shared with his father, Dennis, a bond of love, sacrifice, and unwavering guidance. From childhood to graduation, from NYSC to his first job, Dennis was his anchor. But when tragedy strikes, Chukwuemeka must face a world without his father, navigating grief, resilience, and hope. This is a powerful story of love, loss, and the strength to rise above life's greatest challenges, proving that the bonds of family never truly fade. Sit back, relax, and find out what happened in this wonderful story. Chukwuemeka was no ordinary boy. He was the pride of his village, a young man whose presence commanded respect. Handsome, intelligent, and strong, he carried himself with a quiet confidence that made people notice him wherever he went. But it wasn't just his appearance or mind that made him special. It was the extraordinary bond he shared with his father, Dennis. Dennis, a retired teacher, had lost his wife when Emeka was just a baby. From that day forward, he devoted every ounce of love, attention, and energy to raising his only son. He promised himself that Emeka would have every opportunity he could provide, and he would guide him through life with wisdom, patience, and care. The villagers often spoke of the unusual closeness between father and son. Emeka never ate without seeing his father, and Dennis never ate without sitting beside his son. Every evening, Dennis would gather Emeka and narrate ancient stories, tales of heroes, wise kings, and courageous warriors. Emeka would listen intently, eyes wide with curiosity, asking questions that often surprised his father with their depth. Dennis kept a small notebook where he meticulously recorded Emeka's growth, achievements, and insights, everything from his first words to his latest academic success. It was a testament to their bond, a private world of love and pride that even the closest villagers admired but could never fully understand. Their laughter, shared secrets, and quiet moments of reflection were the heartbeat of the household, a rhythm that neither time nor circumstance had yet disrupted. It was a quiet night in the village, the air filled with the scent of burning firewood and the faint hum of crickets. Chukwuemeka was in the kitchen, preparing a simple dinner after a long day of school and study. He hummed softly to himself, chopping vegetables with precision, lost in thought about his future and the dreams he hoped to fulfill. Suddenly, his body went limp, and he slumped against the counter. The knife clattered to the floor, and his head lolled to one side. Dennis, who had been sitting nearby reading, immediately rushed to his son's side. Panic surged through him like a tidal wave. "Chukwuemeka, Chukwuemeka, talk to me," he shouted, shaking his son gently. But Chukwuemeka's eyes fluttered weakly, and his lips barely formed a whisper. Without wasting another second, Dennis scooped him up in his arms and ran toward the village hospital, his heart hammering in his chest. Every step felt heavier than the last, fear gnawing at him relentlessly. At the hospital, the doctors quickly assessed Chukwuemeka and delivered the news. He needed emergency surgery for an inflamed appendix. Dennis's heart sank. All the years of careful planning, all the sacrifices he had made to secure his son's future, now seemed to hang in the balance. Yet, he refused to let fear control him. He emptied his bank account, gathered the savings he had painstakingly accumulated, and borrowed from friends and neighbors. "Papa will not fail you," he whispered into Chukwuemeka's ear, gripping his hand tightly. The surgery was tense, each second stretching into an eternity. Dennis paced the waiting area, muttering prayers under his breath, wiping tears from his eyes, and clutching his notebook, where he recorded every heartbeat, every moment of fear, and every hopeful thought. When the doctor finally emerged, a small smile breaking through the serious expression, Dennis held his breath. The surgery was successful, the doctor announced. Relief crashed over him like a flood, and he sank into a chair, tears streaming down his face. Chukwuemeka was safe. Dennis sat by his son's bedside, holding his hand and whispering softly, recounting the first story he had ever told him as a child, promising that nothing would ever stop him from achieving greatness. That night, as he recorded every detail in his notebook, Dennis knew that their bond had only grown stronger, forged in love and tested by fear. The morning sun poured golden light across the village as Chukwuemeka returned home from secondary school, clutching his result slip tightly in his hand. His heart raced with a mixture of anticipation and nervous excitement. He could barely contain himself. "Papa, I passed," he shouted, his voice echoing across the compound. Dennis, who had been tending to the small garden near the porch, froze for a moment, then broke into a wide, beaming smile. Tears welled in his eyes as he rushed to his son, wrapping him in a tight embrace. "I knew you would make me proud, my son," he whispered, stroking Chukwuemeka's hair gently. The bond between them felt unbreakable in that moment, a cocoon of love and shared dreams. They went inside, sitting at the small wooden table where Dennis kept his cherished notebook. Together, they recorded the achievement in meticulous detail, the date, the time, and Chukwuemeka's results. But beneath the joy, a shadow of worry lingered. Dennis hesitated before speaking, his voice slightly heavier than usual. "My son, I am proud of you, but I have a problem. I don't have enough money for your jam form." Chukwuemeka's eyes widened, and his smile faltered. "Papa, you promised. You said you'd see me through university," he exclaimed, his voice tinged with worry. Dennis took a deep breath, holding his son's hands firmly. "I did promise, my son, and I will keep that promise. Your appendix surgery drained the savings I had prepared, but don't worry. I will find a way. You will go to university, and I will see it through, I promise." Chukwuemeka, though concerned, trusted his father completely. He knew Dennis would move mountains to ensure his dreams became reality. Together, they discussed the next steps, planning how Dennis would gather the funds and take loans if necessary. They laughed at the thought of the long journey ahead and wiped away tears of anxiety with a renewed sense of determination. That night, they went to bed with hope glowing in their hearts, knowing that obstacles were only temporary and that their unwavering bond could overcome anything. Dennis, as always, recorded every word in his notebook, noting not just the results, but the emotions, the promises, and the dreams that were now more vivid than ever. The village, as always, watched them with admiration. Their neighbors whispered about the extraordinary love between father and son, how Chukwuemeka's achievements reflected Dennis's devotion. Chukwuemeka felt the weight of expectation, but he also felt the warmth of his father's unwavering support. The result slip wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a symbol of sacrifice, love, and the first step toward a future that neither of them would ever give up on. And in the quiet of their home that evening, father and son sat together, hands intertwined, dreaming of university days, graduation celebrations, and a life built on promise and perseverance. Dennis worked tirelessly in the days that followed, determined to honor the promise he had made to Chukwuemeka. Every coin he had, every little savings, was counted and recounted. He approached banks and local organizations, explaining his son's story, his determination, and the dream that now rested on their tiny shoulders. Each step was filled with stress, worry, and sleepless nights, but Dennis's love for Chukwuemeka kept him going. He imagined the day his son would hold the jam form in his hand, and that image pushed him forward, giving him strength that he didn't know he possessed. One evening, as the sky darkened and the village lights flickered on, Dennis came running up the dusty path, a crumpled envelope in his hand. "Chukwuemeka, Chukwuemeka," he shouted, his voice echoing across the compound. Chukwuemeka, who was finishing up his evening study, dropped his notebook and ran toward his father. When he saw Dennis waving the envelope triumphantly, his eyes widened with excitement. Dennis handed him the jam form. Chukwuemeka's hands trembled as he took it, the weight of years of dreams, struggles, and promises finally resting in his grasp. Tears welled in his eyes, and he embraced his father tightly. "Papa, thank you so much," he said, his voice breaking. Dennis held him firmly, whispering, "I told you, my son, I will never let you down. You will go to university, and you will succeed." That night, they sat together at the table, jotting the moment into the notebook that had become a symbol of their bond. Chukwuemeka traced the lines of the envelope and imagined the classrooms, the dorms, and the lectures that awaited him. He spoke of his dreams, of the subjects he would study, and of the day he would make his father proud beyond imagination. Dennis listened with pride, occasionally giving advice, and occasionally just holding his son's hand, knowing that words were unnecessary to convey the depth of his love. The next days were filled with preparations. Chukwuemeka began to gather his study materials and think about the life ahead, while Dennis planned how he would continue supporting his son through university. Even as financial worries lingered in the background, the warmth of their shared accomplishment overpowered all fear. That night, as Chukwuemeka slept, Dennis sat by his son, staring at the notebook. Each jot, each word, and each promise reminded him that love, sacrifice, and faith could move mountains. And in that quiet moment, father and son had already begun walking the path toward dreams realized and futures fulfilled. The day Chukwuemeka was to leave for university arrived with a mix of excitement and heartache. The village was alive with activity. Neighbors came to bid farewell, their eyes filled with pride and curiosity. Chukwuemeka's bag was packed with neatly folded clothes, notebooks, and pens, each item a symbol of the new journey ahead. Dennis stood at the gate, his heart heavy but his spirit unyielding. He looked at his son, handsome, determined, and grown beyond what words could capture. "My son," he said softly, "this is your moment. Go with God, study hard, and always remember the lessons I have taught you." Chukwuemeka's eyes glistened with tears as he embraced his father tightly. "Papa, I will make you proud. I promise," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. Dennis placed his hands on Chukwuemeka's shoulders, staring into his eyes. "I know you will, my son. Remember, no matter how far you go, your heart must always stay true. No evil will harm you, and your father's prayers will go with you every step of the way." The two held each other for what felt like an eternity, the world around them fading into the background. Finally, Chukwuemeka lifted himself, ready to step onto the bus that would take him away. Dennis's eyes never left his son, even as the bus slowly pulled out of the compound, the dust rising behind it like a curtain separating them for the first time in his life. University life was overwhelming at first. Chukwuemeka struggled with the new environment, the rigor of studies, and the long hours of lectures. Yet, whenever he felt overwhelmed, he would take out his father's notebook, rereading the stories, advice, and words of encouragement Dennis had written over the years. Each page reminded him of the sacrifices his father had made, the prayers whispered silently, and the unwavering faith Dennis had in him. He called home regularly, sharing his experiences, his struggles, and his small victories. Dennis's voice on the other end was always calm, supportive, and full of pride, keeping Chukwuemeka's spirit strong and focused. Over time, Chukwuemeka excelled academically. He joined study groups, assisted his peers, and always found time to reflect on the lessons his father had imparted. Each success, each small achievement, was a tribute to Dennis's unwavering dedication. Yet, even with the excitement of new friendships and experiences, he often thought of home, the small village, the garden where his father worked, the quiet nights filled with stories. It was these memories that anchored him, reminding him that his journey was not just for himself, but for the man who had given everything to see him succeed. Every night, as he closed his books and prepared to sleep in his dorm, he whispered, "Papa, I will make you proud. I promise." University life, though challenging, became a canvas upon which Chukwuemeka painted his dedication and hard work. Every day was a new test of his resilience, long lectures, demanding assignments, and endless nights of study. But he faced each obstacle with the discipline his father had instilled in him. Dennis's words echoed in his mind constantly, "My son, never take shortcuts. Hard work today brings honor tomorrow." These words became Chukwuemeka's compass, guiding him through moments of doubt and fatigue. Even in the bustling campus, he never allowed distractions to sway him. His focus was unwavering, his dreams too precious to be compromised. Chukwuemeka's diligence did not go unnoticed. Professors admired his intelligence, peers sought his guidance, and his grades reflected his dedication. Yet, it was the bond with his father that gave him true strength. Every evening, he would call Dennis, recounting the day's challenges and small victories. Dennis, always patient and encouraging, celebrated every triumph and offered advice on setbacks. "Remember, my son, success is built brick by brick. Even a small achievement today lays the foundation for a larger victory tomorrow," he would say. These calls were more than updates, they were lifelines that kept Chukwuemeka grounded, reminding him of his roots and the man who had sacrificed everything for him. During vacations, Chukwuemeka returned home, running into Dennis's arms, sharing university stories and reliving childhood memories. They would sit together, jotting down milestones in their notebook. The first research project completed, the highest score in an exam, the clubs he joined, the friends he made. Each entry symbolized progress, a bridge connecting dreams to reality. Even amidst the challenges of adapting to dorm life, navigating academic pressures, and managing limited finances, Chukwuemeka never lost sight of why he was there: to honor his father's unwavering belief in him. By the time graduation approached, Chukwuemeka had distinguished himself not just academically but as a young man of integrity and perseverance. He had grown in ways he never imagined, and with each passing day, he felt the weight of his father's pride. Dennis, too, eagerly counted down to the day he would embrace his son as a graduate, his heart swelling with anticipation and joy. Chukwuemeka knew that his journey was not merely personal achievement. It was a testament to a father's love, sacrifice, and faith. And as he prepared for the final exams that would determine his graduation, he whispered to himself, "Papa, soon I will make you proud in ways words cannot describe. I will honor you with every success, every victory, every step I take." A few days after graduation, Chukwuemeka returned home to the village with his degree in hand, the air thick with excitement and pride. The villagers could hardly contain themselves, whispering about the young man who had grown under the watchful care of Dennis, the retired teacher who had raised him single-handedly. Chukwuemeka's heart raced as he approached the familiar compound. "Papa, your son is a graduate," he shouted, his voice echoing through the village streets. Dennis, who had been tending the garden, dropped his tools and ran toward his son, tears streaming freely down his cheeks. They embraced, holding each other tightly, as though neither wanted to let go. For Dennis, it was the culmination of years of love, sacrifice, and devotion. For Chukwuemeka, it was a moment of triumph, a dream fulfilled that belonged as much to his father as to himself. After the hugs, laughter, and tears, they sat down at the wooden table, the notebook between them, and meticulously recorded the moment. Every detail was jotted down: the date, the emotions, and the pride that filled their hearts. That night, their conversation drifted from memories of school to university experiences, each story a thread connecting their past to their present. Chukwuemeka spoke of late-night studies, professors who challenged him, friends he had made, and the lessons he had learned along the way. Dennis listened attentively, occasionally interjecting with advice, encouragement, or laughter. Their bond, as strong as ever, had not weakened with distance or time. It had been tested and had emerged stronger. Days later, Chukwuemeka received the letter he had been waiting for, the call-up for his NYSC service. He burst into the house, waving the letter high. "Papa, look, I am going to NYSC," he shouted, excitement radiating from every pore. Dennis, tears glistening in his eyes, fell to his knees in gratitude. "Glory be to God, my son is now a full graduate, ready to serve his country," he exclaimed. Chukwuemeka smiled through the tears and reassured his father, "Papa, when I return, I will secure a good job and take you to the city. You will see that your sacrifices were not in vain." Dennis nodded, his heart filled with hope, believing deeply in the promise his son had made. That evening, like so many before, they sat together at the table with the notebook. They recorded the day, the letter, and the emotions that came with it. Each jot, each word, symbolized a milestone in their journey, a step closer to dreams realized, a testimony to faith, love, and resilience. Chukwuemeka felt a surge of determination. His NYSC was not just a duty to his country, it was an opportunity to honor the man who had given him everything. As night fell over the village, father and son sat together in quiet reflection, hands intertwined, hearts aligned, ready for the new chapter that awaited. The morning Chukwuemeka was to leave for his NYSC service dawned bright and warm, yet the air in the village carried a heaviness that only a parent's heart could feel. Dennis had risen before the sun, tidying the compound and preparing a small breakfast for his son, though he could barely eat. He watched Chukwuemeka dress in the crisp NYSC uniform, the green and white fabric symbolizing not just service to the nation, but the culmination of years of hard work and sacrifice. Chukwuemeka adjusted his cap, glanced at his father, and smiled nervously. He knew this departure was necessary, but it was the first time in his life he would be so far away from the man who had been his constant support, his mentor, and his best friend. Dennis knelt beside him, placing both hands firmly on Chukwuemeka's head. "Kneel, my son. Let me pray for you," he said, his voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. Chukwuemeka complied, bowing his head and closing his eyes. Dennis prayed with every ounce of his being, pouring out words of protection, guidance, and blessings. "It is well with you, my son. No harm will touch you. You will go safely and return safely. No evil eyes will see you, and you will come back with a good testimony. Your work will honor your family, and your service will bring pride to our name," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Chukwuemeka felt the warmth of his father's hands and the weight of his prayers fill him with courage. After the prayer, Dennis helped his son adjust his uniform and walked with him to the bus station. Villagers lined the streets to bid farewell, whispering words of encouragement, while Chukwuemeka's heart ached at the thought of leaving the man who had been his entire world. He embraced his father one last time, promising, "Papa, I will make you proud in every way. I will serve well and return to you." Dennis held him tightly, his tears flowing freely as if this farewell were the last time they would ever see each other. "I know you will, my son. Go with God, and remember that every step you take carries my prayers with you," Dennis said. As the bus pulled away, Chukwuemeka pressed his hand against the window, watching his father shrink in the distance, yet feeling his presence stronger than ever. The journey ahead was filled with uncertainty, but he carried with him the lessons, stories, and prayers of Dennis. Every challenge he would face in NYSC, long hours, demanding tasks, and the trials of adulthood, was now tempered by the knowledge that his father's faith and love were with him. That night, as he settled into his dorm, he opened the notebook Dennis had given him for encouragement and read through the jots, finding strength in every word. Chukwuemeka whispered softly, "Papa, I will make you proud. I promise." And with that vow, he drifted into a sleep filled with dreams of service, success, and the unbreakable bond he shared with his father. The first weeks of Chukwuemeka's NYSC service were challenging, testing both his patience and resilience. The days began before dawn with strenuous drills and orientation, and the nights stretched long with paperwork and community projects. Some of his colleagues complained, but not Chukwuemeka. He remembered his father's words, "Hard work today builds honor tomorrow." Every task, no matter how small or tedious, he approached with dedication, knowing that each effort brought him closer to the future he had dreamed of with Dennis. Even when others doubted themselves or grew weary, Chukwuemeka persevered, his father's love serving as a steady beacon guiding him through the difficult moments. The officers and supervisors soon noticed Chukwuemeka's commitment. He approached every assignment with intelligence, creativity, and an unshakable work ethic. In community projects, he inspired his peers to give their best. In administrative tasks, his precision and diligence stood out. By the end of the first month, he had earned praise from both his supervisors and colleagues. Yet, his joy was never complete without sharing it with his father. Every evening, he would recount the day's experiences to Dennis over the phone, describing the people he met, the work he had accomplished, and the lessons he was learning. Dennis, always patient and full of encouragement, would respond with guidance, praise, and pride, reinforcing Chukwuemeka's confidence and reminding him that his perseverance was not just for himself. It was for the man who had sacrificed everything to see him succeed. The months flew by, each day building a record of excellence and respect. Chukwuemeka faced challenges, of course, long hours, harsh weather, and tasks that tested his physical and mental strength, but he never wavered. Each challenge was an opportunity to prove himself, not just to his supervisors or peers, but to Dennis, who had always believed in him. Letters and calls from home reminded him of the sacrifices his father had made, fueling his determination. By the end of his service year, Chukwuemeka had not only fulfilled his duties but had left an impression so strong that his supervisors recommended him for immediate employment. His reputation as a hard-working, reliable, and intelligent young man preceded him, a direct reflection of Dennis's guidance and the values instilled in him from childhood. Every early morning, every challenge faced, every small victory in the community work was a testament to the bond they shared. A bond that no distance, no time, and no circumstance could ever break. And as the final day of service approached, Chukwuemeka whispered softly into the night, "Papa, soon I will come back to you with good news, and we will celebrate together as we always have." Chukwuemeka had completed his NYSC service with distinction, earning the respect of supervisors, colleagues, and community members alike. His final week in the orientation camp was filled with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Though he had given his best throughout the year, he knew that the future still depended on the next step, securing a job. One afternoon, while reviewing his assignments in the camp office, a senior officer called him into the room. "Chukwuemeka, your work has not gone unnoticed," the officer began, his expression serious but kind. "An oil company has been impressed with your dedication and professionalism. They are offering you a position immediately upon the completion of your service." Chukwuemeka's heart leapt. This was the moment he had dreamed about, the moment he would finally bring tangible pride to the man who had sacrificed everything for him. Without wasting a second, Chukwuemeka packed his belongings and prepared for the journey back home, eager to share the news with Dennis. On the bus, he clutched the appointment letter tightly in his hands, imagining his father's reaction. He remembered every sleepless night Dennis had spent working to ensure his education, every penny sacrificed, every word of encouragement whispered over the years. For Chukwuemeka, this job was not merely a career. It was a symbol of the love, guidance, and sacrifices that had shaped him. He smiled as he pictured Dennis rushing to the gate, his arms open wide, tears in his eyes, and a proud smile on his face. When he finally arrived in the village, still wearing his NYSC uniform, Chukwuemeka could barely contain his excitement. "Papa, your son is back from NYSC," he shouted, his voice echoing across the quiet streets. But to his shock, Dennis did not appear at the gate as he always had. Chukwuemeka waited, hope mingling with a growing sense of unease. He called out again, louder this time, and searched the house from room to room. Panic began to creep into his heart. Something was wrong. Eventually, he ventured into the backyard, and there he saw the unimaginable. Dennis lay motionless, a naked switch nearby, the result of an electrical accident. Time seemed to stop. Chukwuemeka's knees buckled as he rushed forward, shouting, "No! Papa!" Instinct took over. He lifted his father carefully into his arms and ran through the village streets toward the hospital, his heart pounding with desperation. Every second felt like an eternity, every step filled with fear. At the hospital, he paced the waiting area, unable to sit, praying fervently as the doctors attended to Dennis. When the doctor finally emerged, The words struck like lightning. "I'm sorry, we lost him," the doctor said softly. Chukwuemeka froze, the room spinning around him. Grief, disbelief, and despair consumed him. He could not accept it. With tears streaming down his face, he stormed past the nurses, carrying his father back home himself, determined to be with him even in death. Chukwuemeka entered the house, still clutching his father's lifeless body, the world around him reduced to a blur of grief and disbelief. The village youths had gathered outside, shouting, pleading for him to hand over the body for burial. But Chukwuemeka refused. "No, my father is not dead," he screamed, his voice cracking with emotion. He carefully laid Dennis on the living room couch, brushing his hair from his face as if life itself could return through sheer will. "Papa, I know you're not dead," he whispered, tears streaming down his cheeks. "I promised I would make you proud, and I have. Now it's your turn to stay with me." Hours passed, but Dennis remained motionless. Chukwuemeka, still in his NYSC uniform, moved between the living room and kitchen, preparing meals for a father who could no longer eat. He spoke aloud, recounting his experiences in NYSC, his job, and his dreams for the future. "Papa, I made it through NYSC. I got the job. I will take care of you, just like you always took care of me," he said, his voice trembling. Exhaustion eventually claimed him, and he fell asleep on a nearby couch. In his dreams, he saw his father sitting at the table, eating the food Chukwuemeka had prepared, smiling and talking with him as though nothing had changed. They danced together, laughed, and jotted down memories in their cherished notebook, the bond between them as strong in dreams as it had always been in reality. Morning came with a harsh light that shattered the fragile comfort of Chukwuemeka's dream. He awoke to find Dennis still motionless on the couch. Panic and despair clawed at his heart. The village youths, seeing that he could not let go, came to carry Dennis's body to the burial site. Chukwuemeka resisted, tears and grief lending him strength beyond human measure. He shouted, struggling against their grip, "No. He's not dead. You don't understand," but their strength overpowered him. He could only watch as his father's body was taken, his heart shattering with each step. That night, alone in the house, Chukwuemeka felt an emptiness unlike any he had ever known. His life's anchor, the man who had been his entire world, was gone. Even in the depths of despair, Chukwuemeka's love for Dennis became a guiding force. He clung to the memories, the teachings, and the stories that had shaped him. Each thought of his father became a spark of resilience, a reminder that Dennis's life was not lost to the world. It lived within Chukwuemeka. Though grief threatened to overwhelm him, he resolved to survive, to honor his father's sacrifices, and to make the life he had dreamed of a reality. In the quiet of the empty house, he whispered to the air, "Papa, I will not fail. I will live, and I will make you proud, I promise." The village gathered solemnly at the burial ground, the atmosphere heavy with grief and silent prayers. Chukwuemeka, still in his NYSC uniform, trailed behind the villagers, his heart breaking with every step. The weight of loss pressed down on him, yet a fierce determination burned within. Dennis had been more than a father, he had been his world, his guide, his constant. Watching the grave being filled with earth, Chukwuemeka felt as though a piece of himself had been buried alongside his father. Yet even in that moment, he refused to let despair consume him completely. Dennis had taught him resilience, courage, and perseverance, lessons Chukwuemeka knew he must now carry forward alone. After the burial, the villagers returned home, leaving Chukwuemeka standing quietly by the grave for a long while. He whispered softly, "Papa, I will not let your sacrifices be in vain. I will live, I will work hard, and I will honor you in every way possible." Each word was a vow, a promise etched into his heart. Though grief was raw, he slowly began to make sense of what had happened, understanding that life, despite its cruelty, demanded he move forward. Chukwuemeka knew he could not linger in sorrow forever. He had a future to build, a promise to fulfill, and dreams to achieve. Dreams his father had nurtured from the beginning. With no family left to lean on, Chukwuemeka was taken to a rehabilitation center by kind-hearted village members who wanted to help him regain strength and stability. It was there that he met Nancy, a compassionate woman who had dedicated her life to helping those in pain. She noticed the raw anguish behind Chukwuemeka's stoic expression and took it upon herself to guide him through his grief. At first, Chukwuemeka was withdrawn, angry, and resistant. He could not imagine anyone filling the void left by Dennis. But Nancy's patience, gentle words, and steadfast support slowly began to reach him. She encouraged him to talk about his father, to share his feelings, and to channel his sorrow into determination. Over time, Chukwuemeka began to rebuild his life. Life at the rehabilitation center was challenging for Chukwuemeka. Every corner reminded him of his loss, and even small tasks felt monumental. Yet Nancy's unwavering support gave him something he hadn't felt in days: hope. She encouraged him to speak, to write, and to channel his grief into rebuilding his life. Slowly, he began journaling his thoughts, pouring his memories of Dennis into words. With each entry, the pain eased, replaced by determination. Chukwuemeka realized that while he could not undo the past, he could honor his father by living fully and courageously. Chukwuemeka also began reconnecting with the world outside the rehab center. He met other young adults facing struggles, shared experiences, and found comfort in communal strength. Nancy introduced small routines, exercise, mindfulness, and goal setting, which reminded Chukwuemeka of the discipline Dennis had instilled in him. Slowly, he started regaining his appetite for life, taking pride in small accomplishments like cooking for himself or completing his daily tasks. Each act became a step toward healing, a reminder that Dennis's love and teachings were still guiding him. By the time he left the center, Chukwuemeka was not only stronger physically but mentally and emotionally, ready to face the world and seize the opportunities that awaited him. Returning to his oil company job, Chukwuemeka felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He donned his uniform, remembering Dennis's lessons about integrity, professionalism, and perseverance. Every task he tackled reminded him of his father's guidance, whether managing reports, solving technical problems, or helping colleagues. He quickly proved his worth, impressing his supervisors with both skill and dedication. But the real motivation came from the desire to honor Dennis. Each achievement was a tribute, each praise a quiet acknowledgement of the sacrifices that had brought him here. Chukwuemeka worked long hours, but unlike before, the toil felt meaningful. He remembered how Dennis had always emphasized patience, consistency, and humility. And so, he remained focused, never seeking shortcuts or recognition, yet steadily gaining respect. By the end of his first month, his supervisors had already begun discussing promotions and long-term opportunities. Chukwuemeka knew that this was only the beginning, but he felt a sense of pride and belonging he hadn't experienced before. He also began reaching out to the village, sending help to neighbors and youth, keeping Dennis's spirit alive through acts of generosity. Chukwuemeka's journey at work was not without obstacles. Tight deadlines, difficult projects, and moments of self-doubt tested his patience. Yet, with each challenge, he recalled his father's words: "No mountain is too high if your heart is determined." He tackled each problem methodically, learning not only technical skills but the importance of resilience and emotional intelligence. Colleagues began seeking his advice, and Chukwuemeka found fulfillment in mentoring others, passing on the values Dennis had instilled in him. At home, Chukwuemeka maintained his rituals of reflection and journaling. Even though Dennis was gone, the notebook continued to be a sacred place where memories, dreams, and milestones were recorded. With Nancy's guidance, he also began cultivating a balanced life, blending work, community service, and personal growth. Slowly, Chukwuemeka realized that grief, while painful, had forged a determination that would shape the rest of his life. Every step forward was a testament to his father's sacrifices, a living proof that love and guidance could transcend even death. Months of dedication and excellence brought recognition, Chukwuemeka's supervisors were impressed not only by his work ethic but also by his leadership skills and integrity. During a company meeting, the CEO personally commended him for his exceptional performance and offered him a promotion. The moment brought tears to Chukwuemeka's eyes. He thought of Dennis, imagining his father smiling proudly, noting the achievement in his cherished notebook. Chukwuemeka realized that every struggle, every sleepless night, and every act of perseverance had led to this moment. Celebrating quietly in his home that evening, Chukwuemeka reflected on his journey. The promotion was not just a reward for hard work. It was a symbol of resilience, a confirmation that dreams could survive tragedy. He sat alone, opening the old notebook, reliving memories of shared meals, stories, and lessons. He whispered to Dennis as if he could hear him, "Papa, I made it. I am living the life you wanted for me. I am proud, and I hope you are too." These private rituals provided comfort, grounding him and reminding him that Dennis's teachings were forever a part of his soul. He called Nancy to share the news, and together they discussed future goals, including ways to support their village and invest in community projects. Chukwuemeka's life was slowly transforming, not just materially, but emotionally and spiritually, guided by the values Dennis had instilled in him. True love, guidance, and sacrifice leave a legacy that outlives us. No matter the hardships or losses we face, resilience, determination, and the values instilled by those who believe in us can guide us to achieve our dreams and honor their memory. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Share your thoughts about this story in the comment section because I will love to read them. And, guess what? I have more amazing stories coming soon. So, like, share and subscribe. Hit the notification bell and stay glued to Folktales by Zida. See you around.